Recently I made a poll asking which of my projects you would like to see first, and not that surprisingly the opera gown won, as I also made a few foundation videos already and don't wonder why I'm sitting so on the edge, because the little cat is here, so I will pet him here and then. This will be a little series where I talk you through different steps of the project. And today I start out with the base dress and the pattern. So a little bit to my inspiration, I wanted to do a black and white evening gown for a very long time, so this has been on my list. And I thought about the classic Worth gown. I will put a picture down in the description, but it is a white base dress with some black ornaments all over it. But I wanted to find something that's not as common, this is a very well-known dress, and I wanted to find something that's not as well-known. And then I stumbled over this dress, and it had the stripes in it, and it had the cool train which I wanted to try. And yeah, so I picked that dress and I started figuring out how I will make it. And I have made it by making a white cotton base dress and then adding the ruffles on the bottom on that base dress, and then making an overlay with mesh fabric, and then adding the sleeves and all the decoration around the neckline. And the decorations on the dress itself will be made with velvet that is stitched on to the mesh. So yeah, today we started the cotton base dress. This base dress is made from a very interesting glazed cotton I found at my local fabric store, which was quite expensive, but it makes a very rustling sound. And I know that wealthy women from that period had sort of a status symbol. If the dress is very loud when you walk, you're richer, because it's usually silk, and silk always makes a noise when you move in it. So I started out with a little bit of proportions, and I will suggest you to do this because it's just a very nice trick I learned in fashion school. So for this you usually make the bust as well. I didn't, but just the bust is, you know, the biggest point around the chest, the biggest line around the chest. And then I mark out the waist on both this and the hips. The hips is the widest part, the waist is the smallest part. The difference between the waist and hip is usually about 20 centimeters. So when I measure this out, which is about 2 centimeters, I know the 2 centimeters are in real life actually 20. More or less, it's like a eyeballing thing, but more or less it's like that. I wanted to know where this extremely extended part begins. So I have from the bottom till maybe here, that's a little bit higher, I have circa 20 centimeters. Those are 3 centimeters, those are 20. In reality, here are 20. So I think about 30 centimeters are... So this gives me a little bit of help on where I should start. So if I see this is 5 centimeters here, I have 40 centimeters. So the train itself is about 40 centimeters. And now, my friends, I'm gonna start on the pattern. So I haven't documented the process of making the pattern itself at all, so I'm trying to explain you what I did. So this is the front of the dress. So this is the center front, and I have seam in the center front, so it can be curved. This is the second piece, which goes to the center front. And you see, if you already made or worked with a basic dress pattern, you know that there is a waist start usually, and then it goes wider where the bust is obviously, and then there's another dart going on here. And usually you don't sew this dart, but since I have a seam, I can make this actually very wide, because it needed to be very wide. Just because of my body and the sort of undergarments I wear. So yeah, here's the waist. And this goes together like this. And I used the basic dress pattern and just transformed it as I needed to be. Because this dress has very, very many seams. It has 6 pieces for the half, so altogether 12 pieces I think. So I could put all the different darts into all the different seams, so I can really form it into my body as I need it. So this is the 3rd piece, and there's a little bit more distance here, because here at the hips it's a little bit wider, so I have a little bit distance here. But if you put it together, you see that it almost perfectly fits here. Yes, here is some space for the hips, so that would overlap down here. And here's the other dart, and the other dart is in the side seam. There are also darts in the back as well. So this is the bodice. So those are the back pieces. They're flipped around, I'm sorry. But here is the center back, and again it has a seam, so I can put in some of the waist reduction here. If you wouldn't have a seam, you need to make it straight, because you would cut it on the fold. But I didn't have to, so it goes together like this, and you can see it slopes out upward here, and then it goes into the strap. No, it actually has a quite big dart as well. Interesting. So the seam hits at the beginning of the strap, as it is shown in the picture. Well, it's not shown, but if you follow the seams, you kind of see it is supposed to go up there or something. And I can show you the bottom as well. I added to the floor length 50 centimeters, so half a meter is the train. And it would hit the floor around here, and then the train goes like this. And again, this is rounded up because of the overlay, but when it was whole, so that did go straight and then sloped back here. So it was a little bit shorter here. I think I made a reduction of 5 centimeters or something. And then it goes straight into the next piece, and it reduces down till I reach the 30 centimeters of the front. So to save some fabric when I cut the base dress out, I cut the train down from the pattern, and cut it separately, so I can save a little bit of fabric, because those pieces are quite weird putting on the fabric and you lose quite some bit, because you need to have the distance here, and then it goes very narrow on top. It's all self-drafted if anybody's interested. So it's not a commercial pattern, but I think, as I said, from a basic dress pattern that's like just a basic A-line dress or even a fitted dress, you could go to something like this. You could lengthen it and add the train, which is very fiddly and a lot of trial and error. But it's possible going from a commercial pattern as well. After cutting all the pieces out, I made a basting line where the waist is, so I have something to hold on when assembling the pieces. The assembly itself was rather simple, just pinning all the seams together and stitching them with my 2 cm seam allowance. And then it was just a matter of patience, because there are a lot of seams. The back was just stitched close at the train and on the very bottom of the dress itself. There was quite a big part left open, so I could get the dress on and off easily with wearing all the undergarments. Then I sewed the horizontal seams, means the shoulder seams, and connecting the bottom flounce and train with the dress part. As the last step of the assembly, I installed a zipper in the back seam so I can make a quick fitting. It obviously got ripped out again later on because zippers are inaccurate till the 1950s. Hi guys, let me show you real quick what I did. I tried the whole dress on, but my room is definitely too narrow for my train. So I wear all my underpinnings and I fitted the bodice. It fits very well, I have to say. What I did was I marked the neckline of the chemise so I know how low I can go with the actual neckline. Then there is some alterations, pinched in some fabric here and some excess around the hips. Also a little bit here. So after all, I'm quite happy. So we'll put that, when it's fully alterated, on my mannequin, on my dress form, and try to figure out something with the train, I guess. I think I just need to remove some of the volume, some of the fabric. It's very much fabric, so I think I might have to reduce a little bit, but I think I will see it on the dress form better as on myself because, well, it's on the back floor. The back of I can't even reach there, so this doesn't really work. So dress form it is, and yeah, but all in all I'm quite happy with this whole thing. After I made all the alterations, I pinked the seams with my pinking shears, and where the seams were curved, means from the waist upwards, I made little curves into the seam allowance, working just like notching the fabric on a curved seam. This technique is seen in extant garments from this period and a little earlier. And then I ironed this whole monstrosity. All ironed and with pinked seams, I worked on the horizontal seams again. First the shoulder seam, which was finished by hand with a whip stitch. The seam that connects train with the top gets flat felled, means one allowance is trimmed down to about the half of its original length and the other side folds over the smaller seam allowance and gets pinned down and then stitched. The neckline gets finished next. I clip the fabric at the corners of the neckline so it could turn about 1 centimeter over all around. This turned over 1 centimeter gets stitched down, and the stitching will be hidden later on, so it doesn't matter if it shows. The very same happened with the hem. It gets turned over once with about 1 centimeter. And I did this completely by eye, because it will be hidden later on and didn't need to be that precise. Next step, closer to finishing, also my least favorite part, closures. For historical accuracy I went with hooks and eyes. I used 3 big ones and smaller ones in between, about 10 pairs altogether, then stitched them on by hand with a buttonhole stitch. But there are great tutorials for that out there. Now for boning. Extant garments were often boned, and I believe an evening dress like this would be boned too. I finished the spire and steel bones with those little hoods, I don't know the English name, but I usually carefully press them down with pliers till they sit tight and snugly around the bones. So to make the cases for the boning, I used some sateen ribbon I had left over from another project. Polyester ribbon is obviously not accurate for this time, neither is the method I use. But since polyester melts easily, I seal the edges with a lighter by melting down the 2 layers. This method is really not accurate, and polyester sateen isn't that great because it's not as durable as twill tape would be or anything like that. But I just had it in hand and I want to use it and not throw it away. Then I could stitch on the boning, and I made sure to just catch the casing when sewing it on with very tiny whip stitches. I used, I think, 5 bones, 1 in the center front, going over the waist, 2 in the next seam closest to the center front, and 2 others in the back. Lastly, a waistband gets stitched into the inside. I used twill tape and sewed it with a crisscross stitch, making sure I have rather small stitches on the outside, or even better just stitching through the seam allowance. This was done to support the waist and to make putting the garment on a little bit easier. This waistband gets closed with a hook and eye closure, but I did it off camera. And also finished the edges of this waistband with small running stitches. And then the base dress is done. I really hope you liked the video, and I hope you will continue the journey of making this gown with me. Thanks for watching, and if you liked the video, give it a like or comment or subscribe to my channel.